Hello. All right, we're back. Unfortunately, my stream had a hiccup, so I started a new stream. So we're on the new stream, and I apologize. But the good news is we're just going to be printing on this one, so this kind of actually works out. Um, I do need to fix something in my print. I think where we left off was I was slicing something, and my print settings are off because there's some speed things that need to change for my axes. So need to fix some things in my z-axis. Print settings, machine limits. Here we go. Maximum Z feed rate. Okay. Wait. Decode. Save. I'm just exporting a new G code. Let me get a new chat popped out so I can see what's going on. Silly thingies. All right. File, new tab, and live events. And we're going to go to this live event. And we're going to hit pause so no audio comes out. We're going to pop out this chat. Pop out chat. Okay. We're back. That was weird. Super weird and strange. All right. Hello from Holland. I'm back. What's up, Christopher? Mr. Tillyman? Okay, let's try re-uploading a better thing. It ended up crashing my printer because it was going too fast. So upload G-code. Uploading a whole new G-code because the speed was too quick. Estimated print time is something I don't know. Let's take a look. It says 1 hour and 30 minutes for this tiny octopus. All right, resending the G-code. Yeah, it hasn't finished yet. Well, that was an issue because I didn't change the Z-axis speeds in the print settings. So when it tried to start printing, it was like, I did scale it down. It's only like a 30% thingy majiggers. But it does take a while to home now. This is definitely going to take more tuning than I thought it was going to take. Someone had warned me on Facebook that it's going to take a while to make it work. But yeah, it is super tiny and won't have much room to accelerate into fast print speeds. But it will let me know if it prints really fine and dandy. Yeah, it probably won't be too bad. I mean, I won't print the whole thing. As long as I can get like half the thing printed, that'd be great. Let's see if this thing even 0.05 layer height is what I went with for this print, just to see if it's any better. You know, that was the whole point of putting these fancy things on, was to print tiny things. I don't think I'm gonna leave these things on here though. This is a lot of work. Well, it's not a lot of work. It's just a lot of tomfoolery to make it work. I definitely don't want to bring this to Murph or anything and be like, oh, look at my slow Z-axis. I bet your Z-axis doesn't go this slow. All right, we're almost a temp, I think. I can't see the screen. You guys can. It is a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. This exact thread is T8 by 8 or T8 by 2. Yeah, definitely that acceleration's too quick for the print head move. I need to work on that too. I don't think it has anything to do with the strength of the Z-axis motor. think that has everything to do with the fact that it wants to bind. But we'll find out. I don't know what 4 starts means on a threaded rod. All I know is that when you measure a threaded rod, the T8 just stands for the diameter, and 2 is how many millimeters it moves in a full rotation. So when the z-axis moves 360 degrees, it moves 2 millimeters upwards. 4 flutes. I have no idea how many flutes. All right. We made it much further than last time, which was cutting out. Maybe that's why it cut out. Video's like, no, Chris, don't show them failing. So this is this made it further. We're good. Well, I need to work on that Marlin bug. I'll have to change the initial burst speed. All right, it's printing. Live Z is a little too low, which is whatever. Live Z. That's better. Okay. So the Bondtech extruder on this one is geared 3-to-1. The Prusa, the standard Mark III isn't geared. It's a 1-to-1 Bondtech, which is no different than just having a hob gear, but you get the dual grabbies of the Bondtech, minus the fun part of the Bondtech, which is the gearing, which allows you to have much finer resolution on the extruder access. So first layer is going down good. We'll see how well it works at the 0.05 layer height, which isn't something that you can't already do. But let's see if it even works. I didn't buy it from a regular store. I bought it directly from the manufacturer. Oh, yeah. Look at those print speeds. We're printing tiny and fast. Little rough start because the first layer was a little bit too low. But that should clean itself up over time. I haven't tested flexibles. Somebody else did and said it was fine. So let me back this away from the fan. Yes, Bondtech does ship worldwide. So it's printing. And I'm printing it fast, so I apologize. This isn't actually a Bowden. This is a direct. This Bowden is just a feed tube. My spool is over here because I'm one of the people who doesn't believe in a frame-mounted spool holder because it just pulls on the frame. So, but yeah, it prints flex fine. Some people have posted photos with flex from it. The original Prusa one prints flex fine too, so all right, now it's printing way better now that it's over the fact that it was over extruded on the not over extruded, but the first layer was so low it was a little rough. This is my normal print speed. So when you see the prints that I post, that's the normal speed. 120 millimeters per second on the internal and the infill, and 80 millimeters per second on the internal perimeters, and 40 millimeters per second on the external. So it should be fast enough to not have an issue with the Bondtech and everything. But yeah, it was definitely over squished. Well, it's not morning. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. I would definitely be more comfortable going faster, Yes, there's definitely a benefit to having the reverse Bowden. I was actually, myself and Christopher Tilley worked together to develop a reverse Bowden for the Mark III. So that was like our first fun time, happy planning. But I've always run a reverse Bowden. The only printer that doesn't have reverse Bowden is that almost completely stock Mark III. On this printer, the smooth rods. The smooth rods and the bearings are stock Mark III, and the ANSI board. The screen is new. The frame is new. The Z-steppers are new. All the axes are new. The extruder's new. Even the case isn't stock that holds it. This is just a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, so nothing fancy. So, but yeah, the smooth rods are about it. Dang it, Mark. You have a Mark 3S? You got to put that apostrophe in there. People hit up Joseph because he wrote, this is how we make our PTFE tubes for a Mark III, no apostrophe S. But, the PS, the power supply is stock too. But it's the second power supply on it. The first one blew, and Prusa next dayed me a new power supply. I really should put a means well on it. Gosh darn, my thing's blowing up. It's the only problem with having an Apple Watch. When people start messaging you like crazy, then my wrist just goes like crazy. Yeah, definitely need to add these to the blog. I don't think that the T8x2 is going to make it, unless I see something ridiculous. Who knows? I think I might just go back to stock after a few test prints, but for the Bear, there's only one, which is this one. You can't even see it, but the one that I have on this Mark III is actually one I designed. I took the JLTX Z-axis and swapped some things, and I made my own. So look for Kodiak 2600 on Thingiverse. So I have a full Z-axis. Well, it's just this piece for the Z-axis that holds the little coupler, so you can run that, and then you can find a million of these different connectors. So for the actual extruder, yeah, the Mark III's firmware has been leaked. Prusa posted some of that stuff on there, and there's a new filament sensor. Doesn't have lasers on it, so it actually works. So I'm happy about that. Oh man, I can't keep up the upgrades on this thing. Technically, the MMU is a reverse Bowden because it has a big old PTFE tube that runs to it from the filament. So, yeah, it's technically a giant machine made of reverse Bowdening. So, I will say this: the print looks really good. I can't get a good look at it because of the angle it's in, but the layers look really nice. So, what are my thoughts on Railcord? If you have the money, it's my next printer I'm buying. Well, maybe it might be my next printer. It's definitely gonna be my first Core XY printer. That thing's amazing, and I've said it before. Tony and the team behind Railcore stuff from Project Red in Chicago, those guys are really good, and they know what they're doing. And they have two different machinists that are part of the thing making solid aluminum parts. They have a magnetic 300 by 300 mix 6 aluminum bed, so it doesn't warp. Heat doesn't cause it. It's de-stressed aluminum, so when it heats up, it doesn't contract or expand. So the technology in the Railcore is amazing. My only thing that's holding me back from ordering is Duet 3, is on the upgrade path. So Duet 3, or Duet has announced the parts and everything and the magic in the Duet 3, which I think will release at Murph. And that's my one thing. Like, I don't want to buy the Railcore, which is it's a good investment. I mean, it's only like $1,500. I already have a Mosquito hot end, so I can put that on there. I can do most of it, but then you're just going to have to rebuy the Duet because I'd rather have the Duet 3. Yeah, the community is my favorite part. They're a really good community with some really smart people. And they're always willing to try new things. So oh man. So about $700 for 24 PC ribs. You know, besides that first layer, man, this thing's looking kind of amazing. I can't see the front, and I know I messed up the Z-seam because the one issue with the Align Z-seam is always puts it in the front of the Qt Octo. So unfortunately, this will have a Z-seam right down. It'll have a scar across its right eye. So, but yeah, from my end, this thing looks pretty darn good. And it's going fast. I would never recommend printing this fast for a tiny object, but I ain't slowing down for nobody. Yeah, the Scarface Qt Octo. So the not so cute Octo. Good call, Mark. Oh, let me drink some of this drink. You know, Tim, I wouldn't put a Core XY out of. I would think Prusa would probably make one eventually. You know, most people probably thought they'd never make a resin printer, and they did. You know, listening to a lot of things that Joseph says and listening to other you know, printers, is the Cartesian printer, you know, your Prusa style bed on the y-axis sliding around, it's limited. It can't print faster because you're limited by this moving bed surface. So to increase your print quality and speeds, you have to go to Core XY. You have to do something. And that something is definitely going Railcore or Core X. So yeah, Ultim is ridiculously expensive too, which, you know, a lot of people like. I always love the BuildTak PEI sheets. It's pure Ultim. That's why they're so expensive. Just like their regular BuildTak surfaces are pure polycarbonate, which is why you don't print polycarbonate on BuildTak surface. Well, this is the BuildTak surface. I took off the textured bed because I didn't want to, in case this decided to, you know, to crash. I didn't have a surface that you know, I'm okay with this thing getting a gouge in it because I might have a stack of print surfaces both next to me and behind me. So, so I definitely think the next path for Prusa is definitely a Mark III's to improve the Mark III. It would be a slow crash. It would be, but you know what? Knowing me, I wouldn't be fast enough to hit the button, and then all of a sudden I'm just like slow motion going, and then it crashes. I'm not an expert, but I have been working on my own printer, so it's basically going to be a giant bear with extrusion. It basically, I consider it like an actual CR10 Pro, where it's going to be V-slot material and lots of it'll still have 3D printed parts for sure. But getting away from smooth rods and getting away from certain things is definitely going to be a benefit to print tech. I think Creality definitely has, and they have an upper hand because they're using all extrusion, which it's much easier to make mistakes and dealing with bearings and dealing with smooth rods and all this nonsense. You know, it's louder. You know, a lot of people are surprised how the Mark III is quiet, but when you get a CR10, that thing is super quiet because it's just wheels rolling on, you know, smooth extrusion. This thing is moving, you know, bearings, which are loud, on top of steel rods, which just are loud and transfer the noise. So, and extrusion's so cheap, you know. Downfall is those V-slot wheels are not cheap. These good ones aren't, because you want the polyurethane ones. But yeah, I only have heated beds, and I've used regular build tack, and I feel build tack is great when you're first starting because it just kind of works. But if you over squish build tack, it's a nightmare. And then once you've scraped build tack enough, because you know it grips so hard that when you have to take it off, you have to get in there with a with some kind of flat tool, some kind of, you know, paint chipper thingy. I feel that you end up damaging it so quickly that it ends up not being as good of a surface. PEI, I feel, is more of that halfway between beginner and intermediate surface where you need to clean it. You need to be cautious on how you use it. Because again, it can damage, but you can refresh it with sandpaper. You can refresh it with acetone. You can't refresh build tack. Here, Mark, I'll change that for you. I'm going to make Mark an a moderator. There you go, Mark. You're now a moderator. There you go. Yeah, so James, Prusa uses threaded rods. They don't use a coupler. They always have the threaded rods embedded directly into the stepper, so I had to replace the complete Z-axis. So replacing this complete Z-axis is definitely fun. There's also no room for a coupler, because at the lowest point, the coupler would probably hit the printed part here, the printed X-axis. So, oh man, I can talk for a while. You guys can ask questions now. I'm just gonna let this thing go for a while, and it seems to be printing just fine. All the details are showing up. Yeah, looks great. I can move this thing. I can move the printer while it's printing. That doesn't hurt it, right? Can squeak my chair forward. Oh. So if anyone's missed anything or just joining in, there was a previous video, and I swapped the threaded rods here from T8 to T8.2s, and which are just much finer. We fought through some binding and some issues with the stepper current and other things, so we had to make a custom firmware to run it. But thankfully, people like Stephen Armstrong, thank you, Stephen. He got me hooked up on how to run a Prusa firmware fixer-upper in Arduino. So we are running a print at 0.05 millimeters, which isn't a challenge, but it'll give me a good indicator, you know, how this is working. And the print looks amazing right now for me as someone who doesn't print tiny things. Yeah, so if you change Z height, so one of the things before my stream crashed, the previous stream, I was showing people how to set up a smaller layer height profile. So the lower you go in layer height, the less retraction you need, because the reason you retract a certain amount is really based on how much you're extruding and how big the layer height is. So as you have bigger layer heights, you have more extrusion coming out, so you need a little bit more of a retraction. When you're printing really tiny and thin, there's already a lot of pressure in the hot end, so you need less retraction. You also need less Z-hop. So if you have Z-hop, you should just use my math that I've always used is double your layer height. So if you have a 0.02 layer height, your Z-hop should be 0.04 millimeter, or it should be 0.2. If you use a 0.2 millimeter layer height, you should have a 0.4 millimeter Z-hop. This is a 0.05 layer height, so I have a 0.1 millimeter Z-hop. Because again, the Z-hop is a distance you need to move, and when you go too high, it has to hold that pressure back, so it's going to ooze. So yeah, there's some things you need to change, and speeds matter too. You don't want to print really slow at smaller layer height. Printing's too slow, again, too much back pressure, and you're going to get a lot of zits and poor extrusion. And again, I didn't calibrate this. This is completely uncalibrated right now. I don't even know I don't know. You could turn out. It's looking good. The layer extrusions look great. It's white, so I'll post photos up on Twitter and on the Facebook, because I don't think I'll be able to show. I won't be able to show any of the detail here. Genuine high winds are expensive. I remember the Railcore kit jumps from, I think it jumps the entire price. So from $1,500 for Railcore to $3,000 if you want high wind rails. But high wind rails are the best. So why the Capricorn? So I always, I've been adamant that spools that are mounted on the frame are poopy, and this is just a filament guide. So basically, you get less force onto the frame, which this frame's super sturdy. I wouldn't really worry about on this frame. The other benefit is you don't have a lot of the pulling forces going on, so you're not yanking on the filament every time the filament wants to extrude. There's always like a constant amount of pressure, not much pressure, but there's a little bit of pressure in there. So it's almost like something's gripping this and sliding it through versus just hanging in midair. And then when it gets to the spool's the only resistance it gets. So it makes the extruder, because remember, opposites, for every action, there's an opposite and equal action. So when the extruder pulls, it's also going upward. So when that resistance happens, it climbs slightly and then comes back down. It's very little, but it does impart artifacts on your print. So that's why a lot of people, when they switch to a Bowden printer, like when you have a CR10 or an Ender 3, when you have a Bowden printer, you don't have that much of an issue with artifacting on your prints like you do on some of these direct extruders. What's up? Ooh, Scotland. I want to go to Scotland. That place is so fun. Y'all got that good Scottish whiskeys and nonsense. Irish whiskeys. Scotches. That's what it is. So you've got Scotch. Scotch whiskeys. Oh, I'm tired. Warm beard. You get an umbrella. Yeah. Rain. I have to deal with that in the Midwest anyway. I'm fine with wearing a kilt. I don't think it'd be the first time. So I have plenty of odd life experiences. So it might seem normal, but I'm not. Brexiteer. I mean, it looks super smooth. You guys have dragons? So, Michael, good question. I originally ran the very first BMG extruder mod, and that's where I kind of liked it because the extrusion, which was much more even, and one of the issues that the Mark III has been plagued with, that a lot of people pick on the Prusa, is this basket weave pattern, where the layers, instead of having uneven layers, the layer is uneven on itself. So instead of being a nice straight layer line, the layer almost kind of like dips in and out very slightly. And you get this almost basket weave pattern on your prints in the right light. And the BMG removes that completely, at least from my experience on my printer. There's other things that cause that issue, but when I switched to this, I definitely had a much better experience. And that was just with the printed one. And I've got other printed ones that I haven't tried yet, but so we have haggis. I've had chitlins, so haggis doesn't scare me, but I wasn't really that impressed with chitlins. I mean, I'll eat it. But yeah, I think if you don't go this route, the only reason I like this route is because Greg from the Bear Extruders, he helped design the air cooling inside. So it has the best air cooling because Prusa likes to use those Noctua fans, and Noctua fans are definitely underpowered. So a lot of people are having clogging issues and such. So this helps. So I like the printed ones. You don't have to go this way, but I think the printed ones have some cool options. So a lot of people questioned why we didn't add an indirect filament sensor mod, and The reason being is we knew that Prusa was going to release a replacement for the laser sensor, because the laser sensor is finicky, to put it lightly. Again, I don't like to be too mean. I haven't had too much issue with it. I have one printer that I've had two printers that just the filament sensor died on, and I've gotten replacements within my warranty period. But yeah, the filament sensor with the lasers and stuff didn't live up to the hype, and they're replacing that with a much better sensor. I believe it's infrared or something. The Mark III's firmware kind of got leaked on the GitHub, so some smart people dug through it and found it. So yeah, it does have the Sanan fan on here. So my Z steps per millimeter are the same, so it's still 400. I tried the 1600 because it's 4 times resolution, and it couldn't handle it. It would just bind and skip, and it got better when I dropped it to 400, and that didn't work. So I had to increase the motor current and also decrease the feed rate and the acceleration. Yeah, you definitely can't print HTPLA on a Mark III successfully. I do have a profile that helps because it prints it a lot hotter, which ended up being the same profile, not the same profile, but it was very, it looked a lot like the Protopasta one that they made specifically for the Mark III. But yeah, the cooling is the Noctua fan is just poop. Even a 20 millimeter variant versus the 10 millimeter just doesn't put up enough air. Ooh, Mr. Ferret's asking questions that I cannot answer. Mark, you have no idea how many fans I've ruined that same way, where I'm just like, I can unscrew this while the printer's moving, and then I just end up shoving the screwdriver into the fan, and yeah. I actually have that in the mail. It's sitting at my P.O. box. I will have that $80 one without anything on it. Single start Z screws. I have 2 Z screws. Michael, the Sanan fans is sold out everywhere. There is a Delta replacement, an exact replacement from Delta with the same amazing cooling. And the guys at Matt, I'll get his name. Matt did some testing. He actually put a thermistor inside of the heat break and did some measuring. There's at least a 6-degree difference. Yeah, there's at least a 6-degree difference in cooling with the better cooling fans. Let me find the model number. And the model number for the Delta fan, which does the same amount of cooling as a Sanan fan, is I'll type it out here. So it's the ASB0405 HHA-AF00. That Delta fan. Oh, the noise is louder. But it's no louder than the blower fan. So you don't, it's definitely louder, but it's not louder than the blower fans. The printer itself doesn't get that much louder. Yeah, there's definitely a delay. Yeah, it's a 8 millimeter diameter lead screw with 2 millimeter per rotation. You can't put a 12-volt fan on a Prusa Mark III. The Mark III has a 5-volt output, and you could try to use a buck converter, but someone tested that, but there was a leak. Oh, Zerbo has a Sanan fan. That's awesome. Yeah, if you're looking for one in America, it's definitely going to be from probably DigiKey, which someone, it looks like they posted. Right click on screen and click on statistics for nerds. The custom for I'll post all of my profiles on my GitHub, which is just should be GitHub Kodiak 2600. Let me find my GitHub. GitHub. And yep, there it is. There's me, Kodiak 2600. And I'll post a separate section with all of my profiles, which include a CR10 profile for Slicer. I have a Palette Plus. I haven't tried the Palette 2, and the only reason I didn't get a Palette 2 was because my Palette Plus died. And I got about 10 prints out of it, and something broke on it, and I worked with support, and support is a little abysmal with Mosaic. It's one email a day, every day, until hopefully the issue was solved, and I did that for about 10 days, and they just sent me new firmware, and they're like, try this firmware, this might fix it. I'm just like, I just got tired. So I haven't installed the new firmware and tried my Palette Plus again since then. So, but I do really I really liked my Palette, and I think the Palette 2 is better if you're not a massive tinkerer. So, yeah, so I guess you could use a MOSFET. That's a good idea. So the best bearing for something that moves is definitely a liquid bearing. Ball bearings will wear out eventually because it's moving. You got to remember, this is the only thing that sucks about 3D printing. These fans were made for cases and computers, and those things don't move. They don't have a moving component going back and forth at high rates of speed. So I usually recommend people, if you can find a liquid bearing, that's awesome, but it's just impossible to find. Yeah, Sinan uses a maglev, which is fine too for movement. It's not the best. Anything's better than not having a bearing at all. So, yeah, definitely, if you can get something that has some liquid in it, that's going to be your best, because at least it gives it cushion and a little bit of room to slop around so it doesn't just slam against a wall as it's moving back and forth and then grinding the bearing. E3 tool changer, $1,500. Get yours today. The tool changer is going to be awesome for multicolor prints, but I'm still waiting for the cool tool heads that they mentioned at, I think, Murph. There'll be like a one with a camera on it that can inspect it, or a tool head with fanciness on there. So Seth, on the Bird, so the guys of the Railcore, one of the guys had a Bird Air cooler, and it actually was one of the worst coolers for it. So I actually took their input and decided not to go that route, because every test that they showed, a 12 or 24 volt blower fan outperformed the Bird Air. The downfall is you have to have a good fan duct. The Bird's nice because the fan duct works great, but from every test I saw from them, the blower fan with a good duct just destroyed the Bird Air. So I do like the concept though. But isn't that motor really loud? I heard something about the motor being really loud because it's just a pump. And pumps are loud. Hey, what's up, Edmund? All right, we're getting back to almost the original numbers. We were at 140 people before my connection died. We are printing at a low layer height. We're printing pretty quick. Unfortunately, it's slowing down for minimum layer time. So it was printing much faster earlier. But now that we're getting into small details, it's all like, I'm going to print slow. We're basically printing a Q-Octo at 0.05 millimeter layer heights to see if This fancy Z-axis is nice. And then I'm going to try it again. The pitch is still 2 millimeters, Bernard. The pitch never changed. What the T8x2 stands for is, and same thing with T8x8, which is what the Prusa comes with, which most Prusas come with, is on a full rotation, it moves 8 millimeters. That's what T8x8 means. That by 8 is, it moves the Z in 8 millimeters. So each rotation, full rotation, is 200 steps per rotation. You're getting 0.04 millimeters per step. So this T8x2 moves 2 millimeters on a full rotation. So it moves 0.01 millimeters per full step, if that helps. Oh, well, you have fun, Andrea. Yeah, I hope the stream was cool. It's definitely fun watching me having to make firmware live. The Mark III is 5-volt DC to fan, both front and the actual cooling fan and the hot end fan are both 5-volt. So, and yes, Michael, I have just switched to the Alpha 5, and it is much nicer than Alpha 4 in terms of speed. They definitely sped it up again. They fixed some more Mac bugs since I'm running on the Mac OS X. The static pressure on a 20x40x40 Noctua is still garbage. Just throwing that out there. It is. This Sanan puts out, the version 1 Sanan puts out over 3 times the static pressure of a regular, and you only get double the static pressure going to a 20x40x40 Noctua. So it's the RPMs. It's just, it goes so slow to be quiet that the static pressure is just poop. And static pressure is the most important one. CFM, everyone's like, look how many CFM it puts out, but the amount of air it pushes through has nothing to do with anything. Well, it does have a little bit to do with stuff, but the most important number on there is your static pressure, because that just tells you that it's going to make it through all those bends and turns and nonsense. Yeah, you need a MOSFET. That is what Par Getter W is saying. So, but yeah, even what's funny is the static pressure on that little 30 millimeter E3D, that really loud fan that comes with your E3D, that thing puts out more static pressure than this Sanan. So, yeah. Soft G. Parietter? Oh, yeah, Parietter W. Tristan, you are correct. I could not get this thing to move without having to twist it manually, so I still needed to perfect some things. Parietter? I'll learn it when I'm horrible with names, but remembering them mostly. Because when I say your name in English, it just sounds like par getter, which is somebody who gets par on a golf course, which is incorrect. Oh, parjetter. Yes, 20x40 is definitely better than the 10x. 20x40 is definitely better than the 10x40, but it's still not as good as the Sanan. It's still not the best. It'll work as a cooling fan for your prints, but the issue is all those fins on your E3D heatsink. Those fins eat up a lot of the pressure, and in order to get the air to push through that without turbulence, you need a lot of static pressure. You need a lot more pressure to push through, so you don't lose it to a bunch of turbulence in there. The V2 is a little over double the static pressure of a 10x 10 by 40 Noctua. You'll notice a 4 to 5 degree Celsius temp decrease going to the Sinan 2. He was asking on an Ender, so that shouldn't hit on an Ender. I've seen plenty of people with an Ender with a 20 by 40 by 40. Oh, it is English? Man. This is what I get for not learning English. The x-axis weight is just under 300 grams. I measured it and it was like 290 grams total with the extruder and all that nonsense. I didn't check the bearings though, so it was probably just at the 350 gram mark. Oh. Decorative plastering. That actually sounds like it'd be a fun thing to do. Yeah, definitely test 0.02 millimeter layer height. That'll be next. I'll have to really work on some settings. The Sinan is 5 volt. And that's the miracle of it. It's still a 5 volt fan. Yeah. I think with the Arrow, with that nice heat sink on there, you should be fine with the Noctua. Trying to cool the E3D V6 is definitely a challenge. Get the airbrush nozzle. You know, I saw the airbrush nozzle break for someone, so I think I'm going to stay away from that. This extruder motor is a LDO 0.9 degree motor, which is awesome. Ah. Yes, the Slim Power. The cool new names that they come out with. Because this runs on the Cool Power steppers, which I'm going to swap this printer, which has moons on it, to the Q-Link, the ones with the quick links on them. The Sinan is available through Mouser, I believe is where I got mine from. If you're in Europe, Zerabo sells them. If you are... Because right now they're really hard to get. I posted the Delta one, which is the exact duplicate. And the Delta one is available from DigiKey, and they have a lot of them in stock. I have, and I still leave the instead of the DuPont, I have the Molex connector, which is fine. Ooh, Conrad.se. See, there's so many places to order things from. I'm just so used to like the main two, which is like, oh, I need something electronic, like a fan. I'm gonna go to Mouser or DigiKey. So, or Amazon. If you know, I think Amazon Europe, even like UK, had the Sinan fans. Ooh, Mayer Electronic. Oh, Major Electronic Parts Resellers. Okay. That's right, TME. I knew there was another one. Ooh, I have... Is the printer with it? No. This printer has the precision one on it, the blue one back there. And it doesn't keep as stable of a heating curve as I would have thought it would. For me, I don't see a benefit to it besides the disconnect. It also takes longer to heat up. So if you're printing things like polycarbonate, it takes forever to get the nozzle to heat. I do prefer just the standard 24 watt 40 or 24 volt 40 watt. They seem to be even more stable, but yeah, I don't see. There's not. I thought it was going to be cool, like as in precision was going to like keep that things more stable and just finer bursts of whatever magic, and I was wrong. I don't think there's a benefit to it besides the disconnect. The quick disconnect is awesome because one thing that the Prusa needs so badly is a quick disconnect. Just disconnect all the nonsense in one, just like. Yes, I have my 2 dogs, and they there's probably either the mail or something mail related, because there's always the UPS comes here like every day. I feel bad for the UPS man. Like, thanks, bro, for the thing I asked for. Then we have I have a border collie and a chihuahua, so it's an interesting family of pets. By the way, the chihuahua was a rescue, so I ended up buying it. At the time, I was dating someone, and they wanted a pet. We were living together in an apartment, and I want a dog. I've always wanted a little tiny cute dog, so I ended up buying this chihuahua, Chico. I bought him from some drug dealers. His original name was Reefer, and I changed that from Reefer, and had painted nails and this like bright pink rhinestone crusted leash. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting time buying a dog for $200 cash straight up. So I feel he's had a better life. I mean, he's 16 now, so he's still ticking. So definitely been a good life for that guy. Ooh, saltwater fish. I've always wanted to have a saltwater tank. I used to work in a bar. It's called Oscar's Pub. And they had a huge, they don't have it anymore. They had this huge, like, I mean, behind me, like the space you see behind me would have been this saltwater tank with like live coral and dories from Finding Nemo and Nemos, and, I guess clownfish is what they're called. So yeah, I was always fascinated by it, but then I looked at the cost and the maintenance. I'm just like, I like dogs better. I'll stick to the things that they just want to play fetch every once in a while, and you got to feed them twice a day, and hopefully they don't poop in the house. See you, Brian. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, I think that was another problem too. Was you end up wanting this cool exotic fish, and it starts eating the other exotic fish that were expensive, and you're like, oh man. A parrot. Used to have when I was a kid, we had a cockatiel. His name was Jimmy, and whatever you whistled, he can whistle back. So that was always the best part of Jimmy the cockatiel. Yeah, Michael, the reason nothing's printing is I haven't been really home much in the past 4 days. This is the first time I've been home and not having to run away. I actually stayed up all night and finished my editing from yesterday, and sent all my emails out this morning, so that way I don't have to do anything for a little bit. So yeah, they've just been there's prints on them. I set some prints on them so they look like they did something, but definitely the prints are taller than the Z-axis is. So and the blue one was printing. It was printing a cube, and the cube looks good. There's still a little bit of stuff, and I think it's gonna be fixed when I swap a motor out, because I noticed the X-axis motor actually wobbles, so I'm gonna replace that. All right, have fun, Mike. And sorry, veteran man. Yeah, I'm talking about fish. See ya, Edmund. The only upgrade that I made on this one right now is I swapped out the standard threaded Z-rods for much finer ones, which was a chore because I had to make firmware for it. Thank you, Stephen Armstrong, for helping me get my my setup for making firmware, because I would have made that happen without it. I'm a photographer, so professional photographer. I also do own a art gallery in town, and so I'm a business owner basically, and also part owner in a disc golf store. Well, it's not really a disc golf store, but I helped invest into getting disc golf into the city. So that's what I do. I don't do anything with the disc golf stuff. I just let them run it, and then every once in a while I get a check. So that's until my end's paid off. And then with the art gallery, we just do art shows every month. And then I guess I do YouTube as a job. I'm a maker on YouTube. Hey man, what's up? They're bound at the top, the smooth rods. So they're clipped into the top of this, and there's downward pressure holding it down, I guess, not in. And I'm still using Repetitor server. Elevator mechanic, man, you would love our town because we have so many sketchy elevators. So many. There's this abandoned warehouse I rent out every once in a while for photo shoots, and they have like a super sketch Chicago-made elevator, one of those freight elevators. 2 of them actually in the building. They're so sketch. Like it's got a lever, so you push the switch up, down, which direction you want to go, and just like flip the lever. It hasn't been serviced in 50 years. It's fantastic. Kevin, I'm no god. I'm just a person full of information. But actually, the DigiKey, the Delta fans from DigiKey, you can thank Matt for that. Matthew Humphrey, that's his name, Matt Humphrey. He's the one who found the other one because Synons were starting to get really hard to get. Because what happens is when we find a good fix for things, they sell out quickly. So I definitely love the fact that my Mark IIIs never get heat creep anymore. And I attest it to the fact that Greg from Bear found the Synon fan. So yeah, old elevators are great, but man, it's so sketchy. Oh man, I've been in elevators in town that you can see, there's a hole and you can see straight down, because maintaining your freight elevator just isn't on the top of the list. Yeah, I wish I had a second cam. How will we see the quality when it's done? I guess I'll show it up as close as I can to the camera in front of me. Now, mind you, I haven't been able to calibrate anything. So this thing came right out, but the layers look great. And it's just 0.05 layer height. There's nothing crazy. I'm going to try to go lower and print that when I leave. So I'll take a look at how poor this print comes out, and I'll edit my profile real quick, and then I'll reprint it. I'll go back upstairs and go back to something besides printing. Just let this thing print for a while at 0.02 layer heights. See if it even does anything. Thankfully, I've calibrated the Live Z better this time. The layers look great. It is not printing any slower than I noticed. The Z hop looks good. Overall, it's printing where it should be. It's just a small object because I'm hitting minimum layer times, so it's slowing down for that. How fast? Probably not full speed. I normally print perimeters at 80 for the internal perimeters and 40 for the external with this mod. So it's not getting to that speed. I think it's printing maybe between 20 and 30 for most of it. Yes, I definitely. So great question. I have not changed the first layer height. Now, on the rail core, which is why I found this interesting to try this T8x2 Z-axis threaded rods. The one thing that's amazing on the rail core is the bed is perfectly flat. They're using MIG6 aluminum, which is de-stressed aluminum. It doesn't warp when it's heated. The bed is that grade of aluminum is flat. The Prusa beds have the steel sheet, which is on top of a PCB. PCBs warp. Having another material on top of warps. The sticker on top of this thing, the glue could be uneven, so you can't get a good layer height that small on a Prusa. I think the smallest I would recommend on a Prusa, if you had glass, I would say go down to 0.1 millimeter. You can probably get a bed with glass that level, but on the Mark III, I wouldn't go below 0.5 0.15 for the first layer height. That's just dumb to go any lower, in my opinion, because it just isn't flat enough. You're just going to get even lines everywhere, and it's just going to be goofy. How much time is left? Let me go look at a Repetier real quick. Repetier tells me, a Repetier, there is 20 minutes left. There's no anti-backlash. You really don't need it when you have this small of a layer because the pitch is completely different. Gravity does not. It really helps out here. There's nowhere really for it to go. There's definitely some room on a T8x8, so it's just a standard palm nut. No, Tristan, the bare parts are all perfect. In my opinion, the only thing I don't like on the Bear is the Y-axis. So I have one mod that I have on this one that's not stock Bear, and that's a Y-axis mod for a adjustable tensioner for the Y-axis. So that's the only thing I've done on this thing, besides other mods. But yeah, that's the only one that I would recommend, is looking on Thingiverse and looking for the Bear adjustable Y-axis. But yeah, everything else is stock. It fits and it's well tested. Oh man, I wish there was people always asked to do a video on how to make a profile. And this kind of comes back to other hobbies that you do in life, that you just kind of get a feel for what you do, and you can kind of guess really well at settings. So, you print so much and you test so much that it becomes second nature to just kind of get a ballpark-ish number. Like, I just pick settings and it's printing fine. I didn't tweak much. I just changed the things I knew that I needed to fix for going to a lower layer height, so I don't get big blobbing and weird extrusion issues and too much back pressure. So knowing, so how do I tweak it? I guess. And if you guess poorly, you just go the opposite direction. That's what a lot of the tweaking is for profiles. So I'll run profiles and I'll be like, okay, it prints this angle fine. Let's change this setting. Oh, that made it worse. Let's go the other direction. And if the other direction doesn't work, that means you've gone too far both ways. So, and there's just kind of with anything that you do in life, you just kind of get used to it. So a lot of my profiles are just kind of guessing, finding that middle point, and then running a bunch of prints and making sure all the prints look better than the change before. So like in front of me, you can't see it. There's a whole row of about 20 cute octos. And there's test cube boxes down here and my old test cube box over there. So, yeah, special objects. I always print a cute octo for circles, because when you don't have your belts correct and your settings are wrong, circles are really poopy. And all a cute octo is a bunch of concentric circles. And also your Z height, the little octopus arms will bend and warp if they're not correct. So I like it as a nice quick print. It takes like an hour if you print it fast. I do about 50% size, and I'll run a quick cute octo and be like, okay, cool, the circles are good, blah, blah, blah. Then I'll print a test cube and I'll be like, okay, test cubes are good. Call it a day. I would get the kit. I always recommend the kit with any printer, especially the Prusa printers, because their instructions for building are amazing. It's really difficult to make mistakes. The community is really good at helping you with build issues. And in general, building yourself teaches you how to unassemble and fix issues later on. I would not be as well off in understanding my mistakes and just general issues with printing if I didn't understand how to put this thing together. Because if, it just gets handed to you and there's an issue, you're like, well, I have no idea what to change on it. Like when I bought my CR10, I had no idea about eccentric nuts and, and how V wheels work and how to align this and how to fix these things. So it kind of leaves you in a place where you have to ask more questions, which then you're going to get a bunch of different answers. And the internet's great at giving you answers, but not really good at giving you only correct answers. You'll get a mix of good and bad advice with anything, with any hobby. But with the Prusa, the way you assemble it and how good the guide is, there's very few questions you need to ask. You just kind of build it. And if you do get stuck, you can ask a question. But then when you have an issue, you know where it is, you know where it came from, more so than not. But I always recommend kits. Let's take a look at this link. Y-axis belt holder kit. That's not the one I use, but the guy, Zbrozek, he's amazing. Super smart guy. So I think it should work fine. I think there's actually there's a remix of that one. The Cunningham Law. That's kind of cool. Yeah, and that's another benefit. The online manuals are done really well. And when I build, even when I think I've done a live stream where I didn't even use the manual. And that's the cool thing is, you can just whip it up on your phone real quick and be like, okay, yeah, there's where the connectors go, and then go right back in and fix the connectors. But yeah, you'll definitely learn way more putting it together, and because again, Prusas aren't a Creality or any of those printers. Those things are already done, built for you. Everything's pretty much aligned. You'll have to mess with the eccentric nuts a little bit. There might be something to adjust. But with the Prusas, there's just more things, a lot of printed parts, a lot more parts. And when it's handed to you and something's not working, what do you do? Let me see if I can find the Y-axis tensioner. Let me go to, I hate Thingiverse. Oh my gosh. Might take a while. Sorry guys, I'm going on Thingiverse. I even got to sign in. It's going to take even longer to get in. All right, we're getting really close to the top, which I don't think I have enough top layers for this, so that might be an issue. All right, oh, so slow you are, Thingiverse. I'm on 350 meg down internet, and you still can't work fast enough, Thingiverse. Yes, Aaron, good call. That first auto home was suck. Yeah, I don't use Chrome. I use Safari, and I keep meaning to block the same thing that Ghostery does that makes Thingiverse run better. Just haven't. Yeah, I don't. So many trackers. Let's see what. Yes, that's the one. So the one that was just posted by James is the correct one that I use. It's basically a clone of another one that I use on my Mark III, and I feel it's a really nice tensioner because it keeps everything nice and linear. The other one's nice too, but I think it has 2 screws top and bottom, and you can kind of cattywampus it. I don't know. But the guy's Brozak. He's on the Discord. Super smart dude. I usually bug him for things. By the way, my smartness in printers has a lot to do with the fact that I surround myself with people much smarter than myself, and I ask them questions. I just absorb it. Yeah, it's so weird that sometimes doing things twice works on Thingiverse. Just look, mine finally loaded. My collections. Yeah, I'll just share my bear collection. So here we go. There's a bunch of things that have nothing to do with any of the stuff. I saved a bunch of stuff for the bear, but I didn't print much of it. So block origin. What do I have installed? I have one blocker. Yes, I have one blocker because I use it on my phone. So one blocker has been good to me on the phone. This is almost done. It is printing the top circles. And it looks really good from this angle. I can't get up close to it enough to really tell if it's super good or super bad. White filament is always going to be a little particular, but must have. I still believe the biggest fixes for the Prusa are better X-axis, either the Zerabo or the Bear Z-axis. The Bear extruder is awesome because you can't misalign the Bondtech gears, which I really need to make a video on how to properly align the Mark III gears, because that makes a night and day difference when the gears are misaligned on that printer. But I'll definitely be adding that, because the Bear extruder, just because you can't mess it up, is really nice. And the Z-axis, you strengthened it with a lot of fun things. So there's a new reverse Bowden thing that I designed for the Prusa Mark III. I mean, in general, I could just say just get a Bear because it has all the fixes. But same thing with going for Zerabo. Both of them have a lot of the fixes. The Zerabo doesn't have the cooling fix, which is the biggest thing. So one of the things that I think Matt is someone in the Discord is going to test putting that thermistor in the heat break with a stock R3 with a Noctua fan. We've never tested. That's never been tested what the stock complete setup is for heat. So yeah, you know, or someone just needs to replace Thingiverse. My Mini Factory is amazing. My Mini Factory seems like it's the place to get really cool looking models, but all the functional stuff is hiding over in Thingiverse. I'd like some of that functional stuff to just hop over to My Mini Factory, so I don't have to always go bang it, because My Mini Factory always works. I've never had an issue loading it. Always been fast. There isn't a bunch of tracking on it. It's great. Yeah, the color kits are looking good too. I don't even have a color kit. I do have a custom Bear that's taller. That adds an extra 50 millimeters of Z height. So it's almost done. And it looks good. Could be really bad, but it looks good to me. I'm not usually too particular until I have a chance to really tune a profile. This is pretty much untuned. It's just I'd change the settings. The actual heatsink cooler, swapping out the Noctua, they have there's a lot of math and geometry that was changed, and depending on what fan you have and what geometry you have, there's turbulence and stuff. And how much should I change to increase the Z? It's just one line changes to give you the extra Z height. So very little, if anything, needs to be changed, which is awesome. So 10 seconds, you can have your Z height changed. And then you never have to worry about it ever again. Well, until the next firmware comes out and you gotta compile it. Which, yeah, definitely the firmware is getting a little fragmented. I know Eric. I know you've said it, Eric. It's getting a little frustrating with all the forks going on. There are 400 forks for the stock Prusa firmware. And now we've got, you know, the 7x7 firmware. We've got the or high density mesh bed leveling, HD MBL. You've got the Bondtech extruder one, which changes a couple of things, so that way it doesn't snag. And then you've got all the Zerabo and Bear ones. Well, the Bear doesn't have a taller one. You just change it. But Zerabo has their fork. Yeah. I definitely need to make one with a cool new saying on the front that doesn't say just Mark III on it. It should say Mark III Bear. But yeah, thankfully, like, little things. And Steven's going to put out more videos. I'll definitely put out a video on how to compile firmware for Prusa. It's really simple. Like, compiling your firmware, I thought it was going to be like something that's going to. I'm not a coder. I did have, you know, back in the day, I was really good with certain aspects of breaking your computer with writing certain things on code. But I've never messed with Arduino or any of this whatever nonsense mathematics that they use for Marlin, and it was way easier than I thought. So changing things to your own specifications is extremely easy. And you really can't break anything with basic firmware tweaks. As long as you aren't changing full lines and doing weird stuff, there's no real chance in breaking anything. Not Z steps, but change the actual Z height. So if you want to change the actual Z height, it's pretty easy. But you know, I've now been making firmware for the Bondtech extruder, and it was like 5 or 6 lines that I had to edit a number on, and the number, everything's spelled out. I was like, these are these things. If you change this number, you know what it changes. I have no idea what features would be on a Mark IV. If they made a Mark IV, I have no idea. I think the next thing would probably be like an i4 before they go Mark IV. But yeah, adding the comments is nice and a date, so that way you know what you did wrong or right. I'm really bad at commenting. I normally write them on a sheet of paper. I made a notebook page, and when I was changing things, and I just kept writing them on a notebook. That made it easier for me when I went back and when I made my GitHub for the firmware. I actually posted each line and why I changed it and what it's changing, and you know, etc. That way, it was Thomas. That way, you know, I can go back and change things if I messed up, and then of course, if other people wanted to do it, they could do it without any issue. So we are really close to being done, and the print looks really good. I think I do see one issue. My GitHub link should be just should be GitHub/Kodiak 2600. Yes, GitHub/Kodiak 2600, CODIAC. I'll post it again. Should probably put it in the description. Git plus diff has saved me. Oh man, everyone's fast. So it looks like I did have one issue on the print. I can see a line error or a line issue. Don't know what it is. No glue. This is just PEI. So PLA on PEI sticks really well. I don't see any warpage. Might even be a skipped y-axis step. Maybe it's a layer shift. I don't know. There's one defect in it. So, and then I am at 65C on the bed because it is really cold down here, and anything below 60C makes things warpy. It's about 17C in the basement, so I've had to run everything a little bit warmer than usual. And that temperature seems to work well too with the atomic PLA that I use. So, how much time is left on this print? Repetier, tell me. Well, the time is wrong on Repetier. There shouldn't be with the way I've got the Z-hop set, but it could be. We'll be finding out here shortly. I'm actually going to stop the print. I don't need to see the whole print. The most important stuff is done. So let's hit a stop button here. Okay. And oh, look at how slow that Z-axis go. Oh, so nice. Ooh, that's warm. So I do have some wisping. Wow. Hot. All right. Let's take a look here. So I was over extruding slightly. Get a light on this. So tell me more. Just a touch of over extrusion. And I cannot see a Z-seam whatsoever. And I have no idea what happened here. Oh, I see what the change is. So there's a little step in here. I need to turn off the there was a change with the internal walls here. Yeah, it's not cheap, but it prints so pretty. Gosh, look at that layer height. That's insane. Definitely a little bit of extrusion, over extrusion. So I need to turn down the extrusion multiplier just a little bit. Definitely in the beginning. That was pretty blah. And I got a little bit of fuzziness because the cooling, all that pressure. Let me clean all the fuzzies off here. I'll put it in front of the camera as close as I can get. Actually got a little bit of a matte finish. I need to turn the jerk down. Looks like just a touch too. All right. We'll tune this profile. But let me put up to the camera. Ooh. Guess it's as close as I can get. It's not bad. So what I'm going to do is fix a couple of little things on here and reprint it. But for the most part, it worked. I'm excited. I think I'm going to print a test cube at a normal Z height too. So something at 0.02 or 0.2. At 0.2 millimeters, I'm going to run a test print on it. And then I'll come back down. I'll run another tiny print. But it looks pretty good. Just have a little bit of over extrusion. Just a touch. This is definitely better than what I'm used to at 0.05. There's none of that weird nonsense. So yeah, I think this works pretty good for this small layer height nonsense. So I'm going to go work on a quick profile fix. I'm going to rerun this and let's work on that little burst of firmware issue. Looks like my retraction needs to go up, but there's no seam. I'm not seeing a single seam unless maybe that's the seam. There's no seam. Just a touch more retraction. Huh. All right. My extrusion widths were 0.04 or 0.45 and 0.42 for the external. So I'm going to probably drop EM just a touch. I need more top layers. It's going to start thinning out pretty bad. But overall, this is actually really nice. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to go enjoy a quick food time break. And then I'll post some pictures on the internet. So thank you for hanging with me for that hour long of printing. I don't know how long we've been doing this. It doesn't give me a timer on anything. So I'm going to work on a profile, get it all fixed. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out. And I'll keep posting some more teasers once I get this thing dialed in. So this is pretty good. It just needs to be dialed in a touch. Other than that, I'm going to do a regular layer height cube, and then I'm going to do this again with some better settings, and then I'm going to try 0.02 layer heights. So I'm excited. So stay tuned, enjoy, have fun, go to bed, get some food. I'm going to get some food. So Good night and see you all later.